Of desperation on our televisions this year as the migrant crisis goes from bad to worse. 3,000 migrants said to be passing through Macedonia on a daily basis. 100,000 people fleeing from the Middle East and Africa in Hungary. Hungary not able to cope, demanding more help from the EU. Germany expected to take 800,000 migrants, and Bulgaria reported to be deploying the army to its border to stop the flow of people. Joining us on the line is Jim Roche, who's the PRO with the steering committee of the Irish anti-war movement, and also Ni Chonaill, founder and PRO of the Immigration Control Platform. And thank you both indeed for your time on the programme this morning. Jim Roche, the Irish anti-war movement to stage a protest outside the offices of the EU in Dublin tomorrow, demanding that these people are given asylum.
Yes, good morning, Michael. That's right. We're having a protest at the EU offices 5 p.m. tomorrow. That's the EU office in Dawson Street, Dublin. We're saying that the majority of these people, these really fearful, frightened people, struggling to get out, most of whom do not want to leave their homes and their country and their relatives, are war refugees. They're refugees from wars that have been, if not directly carried out by Western imperial powers, at least influenced by Western imperial powers in the case of Syria. So we feel the EU, particularly those countries who have been involved in these wars, have a particular obligation to help these people. But we feel also Ireland has an obligation to do its part. And Ireland is, through the facilitation at Shannon Airport, supporting the wars that have occurred in Iraq, Afghanistan, and and what happened in Libya. So that is our view. We say that these people should be helped, that they should be let in. But we have a two-plank approach. We also say that the Western-led wars and plunders have to stop. This is what causes the refugee crisis. These people, as I said, do not want to leave their countries. So we are calling for these wars to stop.
Indeed, the aid agency goal yesterday saying that we should at least double the amount of refugees that we take in from Syria and Eritrea. Ni Chonaill, it's hard not to be touched by these terrible scenes that are being broadcast into our living rooms every evening, and not just to feel sorry but concern for these people.
Of course, it's hard not to be touched, but I'm afraid it is a hardness that we're going to have to teach ourselves and to learn. I'm afraid hearts are going to have to be hardened because I can't discuss geopolitics with Jim Roche, but I start from certain givens. And not just what at the moment, but what we've been looking at with illegal immigration to Europe for decades is the modern form of invasion. Military invasion doesn't happen to our countries in this part of the world anymore. This is the form of invasion. So that's my first given. And a related given is, in answer to the question, are there circumstances under which you accept invasion? My answer is no, never. And the final given is, you frame your country's policy. This isn't just your right, this is your duty. You frame your country's policy according to what is right for your country and your citizens. That is not just your right, it's your duty. What we're looking at is dreadful, but it is not to be tolerated. They'll have to sort out their own countries. François Hollande was quoted yesterday as saying, there are moments in European history when we face exceptional circumstances, and these are exceptional circumstances that will last. In a sense, that's a contradictory thing, but the emphasis for me is that it will last. There is no sign of a let-up in this. I heard somebody from, I think it was Concern Worldwide, say the other night that there were 46 conflicts in the world last year. The Middle East appears to be in utter chaos with no sign at all of it coming to an end, and we cannot allow it to continue.
Jim Roche, that's a very different view from the one you've expressed, that governments should look after their own and resist this invasion.
Well, can I just first of all question the language that's been used? This is not an invasion by any means. as I said already, these people, most of them, and in fact, I'd say all of them, don't want to leave their countries. I mean, why would they want to come to a cold place, a cold, rainy, wet place like Ireland or Scandinavia? But let's get the facts right. It's a tiny percentage of the EU populations that we're talking about. I mean, so far this year, 340,000 refugees have crossed the EU borders, which is only 0.05% of the EU's total population of 740 million. What's happening, in fact, it's the Middle Eastern countries and Turkey that are taking the greatest burden, with Turkey hosting, at least 1.8 million, if not more at this stage. Lebanon, a country of 4.5 million, is hosting 1.2 million. These countries haven't caused the problem. In fact, Lebanon has often been the victim, or the people of Lebanon have often been the victim of Western policies. It's the Western, the US, the Britain, France, and the NATO countries that have caused this problem. These people are fleeing wars. The UN has said that. We have to listen to the UN. Just on the numbers, I did hear Gold saying yesterday that, for example, in the First World War, we took in 2,000 refugees from Belgium. So if we could do it then, at a time of when Ireland wasn't a very wealthy country, we have a contribution to make now. I'm not saying that Ireland takes in huge amounts. I think it has to be a whole EU approach. Just on Anya's last point there about the conflicts will last. What an awful outlook to have. We have to find a way to end these wars that are causing these problems.
Okay.
That should be our goal, surely.
Let Anya respond to that to conclude.
Well, when I said they were last, I was quoting François Hollande as it happens. Could I come back we agree on one thing, we all want war to stop. And when you talk about these people don't want to leave their country, of course they don't want to leave their country if their country is okay, but their country is in the midst of war. I want to come to the business of their war refugees, and they must be let in. All of this is posited today in the context of the Geneva Convention on the status of refugees. We are told, Germany is going to register them for the asylum system, etc., etc., etc. And the public does not understand the nature and history of the Geneva Convention on the status of refugees. That sacred document, nobody would stick to it more closely than myself in its original form, was established to deal only with those who found themselves in a problem before 1951 as a result of World War II in Europe. It was bound in both time, restricted in both time and geography. It had nothing to do with Africa and nothing to do with Asia. In 1967, possibly because of the escape from communist Eastern Europe, but for whatever reason, in 1967, that was changed. So it was never intended, it wasn't envisaged either in 1967, that this would have us bringing in populations from Africa and Asia.
But does that make it wrong?
By the way,
does that make it wrong to...
Just 1 second now, if I could just finish this point. As well as that, even in its origin form, it had nothing to do with war. The definition of a refugee in the convention is somebody who has a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a political social group or political opinion.
But surely the point here...
War doesn't come into it at all.
But surely the point here is if these people are fleeing from war, they deserve a humanitarian response.
I'm afraid the answer has to be that we can't do it. The numbers are massive, and I want to come back to the business about, and my heart goes out to them, Turkey and Lebanon. And now I'm not going to take, and such countries, taking them in great numbers. I'm not, of course, going to say that Turkey must do this and Lebanon must do that. Those countries are sovereign countries. But
I'm sorry, I have to cut across because I have to go to headlines. My apologies for that.